This is KGW News at noon.
Good afternoon, I'm Drew Carney, and we start today's News at Noon with the ongoing issue of gun violence in Portland. Police responded to at least 13 shootings in the city within a 28-hour period over the weekend. And because their resources have been stretched so thin, the Portland Police Union has put together a plan that calls for change. KGW's Tim Gordon has more.
The city that works is not working too well when it comes to policing. The head of the Portland Police Association says it's simple math.
The police force was larger, 20 years ago than it is today, with about 170,000 fewer residents of the city of Portland.
Daryl Turner is a former officer who leads the police union during difficult times. Gun violence is up, including homicides like the latest over the weekend at McCoy Park in North Portland.
People who are victims of violent crime having to wait 8 minutes for a response from a police officer. That is unacceptable, and that is not the police officer's fault. That is the fault of not having the proper staffing that we need to support a city and a metro area that we need to support.
Turner says the city currently has 916 allocated sworn positions from the newest recruits to the chief of police. 794 are currently filled, with 59 in training. The police union released what it calls a 5-year vision for public safety and policing. It calls for a lot more cops. The PPA suggests the city hire 840 additional officers over the next 5 years, doubling the force. That would include rehiring 50 recently retired officers in each of the next 2 years, and lobbying the state to allow Portland to set up its own police academy to get large numbers of recruits trained and on the job.
We've been running on fumes for many years. So what we proposed were several options to be able to enhance the patrol function of our organization for the next few years, as well as building up with new officers coming in to the fold over the next 5 years.
The vision comes during a time of police downsizing. City leaders have cut millions from the PPB budget, and there are vocal critics who don't think more officers are the answer. Unite Oregon is one such group, which calls for more defunding. Its deputy director wrote, "This is clearly a bargaining tactic, and we as residents of Portland should ask ourselves, is the solution to the problems we are facing to throw more money at PPB, or is it to actually fund community-centered solutions like behavioral health and affordable housing?"
It is not greed. It is not trying to leverage contract negotiations.
The police union is bargaining for a new contract right now, but Turner says that's not what this is about. But we know there are competing interests for city money, including to expand the Portland Street Response, which sends paramedics and mental health workers to certain nonviolent crisis calls. A recent PSU study found that would be a good move.
We also reached out to Mayor Ted Wheeler's office. He is the police commissioner. A spokesperson said they wouldn't be making a statement today, but that the mayor will lay out his plan for PPB staffing in about a week. Tim Gordon, KGW News.
Meanwhile, complaints about illegally parked cars, trucks, and RVs on Portland streets continue to pile up. A KGW investigation found that in the first 7 months of this year, Portland residents filed more than 3,800 complaints about abandoned vehicles, illegally parked cars, and trash in city streets. That's a 107% increase from the same period of time last year. So what's next? Well, across the Columbia, the city of Vancouver is handling a similar problem by creating what they call safe parking spaces. These are spaces that are set up so people living in their cars or RVs have a legal place to stay. Vancouver's Safe Parking Zone is set up at an old C-Tran bus transit center, and it holds about 50 cars, RVs, and trailers. It also has portable toilets, hand washing stations, and garbage pickup. Similar programs have also been set up in Oregon, in both Beaverton and Eugene. Let's get to this afternoon's COVID headlines, where we have some positive news to share. Case numbers in Oregon are down and vaccination numbers are up. For the last week of September, the Oregon Health Authority reported 10,400 new COVID infections, which is about 9% lower than the week before. COVID cases in the state have actually dropped now for 5 straight weeks. The Oregon Health Authority is pointing to college football games over the last month as a positive sign. They say the fact that tens of thousands of vaccinated fans can attend those games without there being a major outbreak proves that there are ways for people to gather safely.
Yeah, it does show that, the fact that you're vaccinated and that you are masked during these activities is actually very protective and will limit the number of cases.
Officials say vaccine mandates and kids going back to school have both helped boost vaccination rates. Right now, those rates are nearly double what we saw at the end of July. This next story is about a treatment for people who get COVID. The drug maker Merck is asking U.S. regulators to authorize emergency use of its antiviral pill that they created to treat COVID. The company says clinical trials show the pill reduces the chance that newly diagnosed COVID patients will be hospitalized by about 50%. If the FDA does give this the okay, this would be the first pill available to treat COVID. Back to some more local headlines now, including the fire over the weekend in Mount Angel that took more than 100 firefighters to put out, but not before it destroyed 4 buildings. It started in one of those buildings along South Main Street in Mount Angel, and then eventually overtook other buildings nearby, including Hidden Bed of Oregon. Keith Cobb and his wife started that business 10 years ago.
It was like a torch, huge torch. What could I do? You know, it was happening. I was wishing that it hadn't happened, but we'll survive.
Thankfully, no one was hurt in that fire, and investigators are still working to figure out what caused it. Fire crews are also trying to figure out what caused a house fire in Oregon City that left 1 person dead this morning. Clackamas Fire says it happened at about 1:30 along Beverly Drive right off Malala Avenue. Once crews got there, they found that person inside and performed CPR, but again, they weren't able to save them. Right now, we want to take a live look outside, a live look at I-84, which is back open today. Part of the freeway, though, was shut down over the weekend while ODOT installed a new pedestrian and bike bridge. The new bridge will be named in honor of longtime Oregon Congressman Earl Blumenauer. You see him right there. He had a chance to tour that area over the weekend. The new car-free bridge is expected to open up sometime next year. We can also expect MAX delays over the next 2 weeks. That's because yesterday, TriMet started work on the MAX station at the Lloyd Center Northeast 11th Avenue stop, which is a very busy area carrying people on the blue, green, and red line trains. So those trains may run a little slower until that work wraps up on October 24th.